Now we're going to explore the second way of creating and adjusting color in your music, and that's through orchestration. Just the word itself, orchestration, already sounds colorful because it brings to mind all the instruments of the orchestra and their various colors and nuances. In practice, orchestration is more than just choosing the right instrumental colors. It's also about knowing what parts to write for those colors and how to layer them to be most effective. So let's start with a simple musical phrase and see what colors we can bring to them. First, let's play this phrase on the piano so that we can hear its basic melody and harmony. That was a simple musical statement, nothing very special about it. But just the way you can make bland food taste better by enhancing its flavors, you can make musical elements more colorful by how you orchestrate them. So I'm going to take this simple musical phrase and orchestrate it several different ways. First, I'm going to give the melody to the French horns and cellos, and I'll have the violins provide the harmony. Listen to how this colors the music. By choosing those instruments to play those specific parts, I created a more majestic and expansive feel than what we heard from just the piano. I had the French horns and cellos play the melody an octave lower than our original piano melody because of how those two instruments blend together in that specific register. I then had the violins alternating between the various notes of the harmony. By playing this part using the bowed tremolo technique, the violins add an additional nuance of excitement and momentum to the music. It's also important to point out that the position of the melody and harmony parts have now been reversed from our original piano version. In this orchestral version, the melody is now played below the harmony part. You won't always be able to swap the positions of the parts because sometimes the melody just needs to be above the harmony, but in this case it worked to our benefit. Now I'm going to try a different orchestration. I'm going to keep the majestic feel, but this time make it more regal sounding. In this new arrangement, we're hearing mostly brass instruments. I've also added timpani, piatti, violins, and basses to fill out the sound, but I'm now going to solo just the French horns, trumpets, and trombones so you can really focus on how these brass instruments are contributing to the sound. In terms of orchestral color, nothing creates a fatter, richer sound than the brass section. All the instruments in the brass section have unique qualities to their sound and can either perform the melody or contribute to the accompaniment. As you've just heard, the trumpets are playing the melody, the trombones are playing a descending scale line, and the French horns are filling out the harmony. It's important to point out that the French horns and trombones are not just sticking to the notes of the harmony, they're playing additional notes found in the key of G major, the key we're in. These additional notes add richness to the composition. And finally, let's not forget the importance of the timpani and piatti in creating our regal setting. Okay, so we've magnified our simple musical phrase into an enormous sound. Let's hear it played in a more delicate and intimate setting. Quite a big difference from our last orchestration. This time, we have the flute playing the melody in its lower register. And because this flute register has a fragile sound, it needs to be supported by very light orchestration. To accomplish that, I've given the harmony part to the violins, who are delicately trilling in whole steps. As in our previous example, I've added additional notes to that harmony part to fill out the sound. I also have the harp playing glissandos in the key of G major, and with the addition of the mark tree and bell tree, I've created a glistening sheen above this already ethereal arrangement. So we've now heard our simple piano part magnify to sound enormous and then reduced to sound delicate. Let's do something a little different this time. I've created this playful and quirky orchestration to highlight the point that you can take a melody and harmony into any direction you want by simply choosing your orchestration to match whatever mood you're after. I've assigned the melody to the clarinet because of its ability to sound playful, and I harmonized it with the oboe. I gave the full harmony to the pizzicato strings, also for their ability to sound playful, and I've created additional ornamental lines for the bassoon and violins. I call them ornamental lines because basically they're decorating the melody and harmony with additional movement and color. The violin's 16th note rhythms, occasionally played by the bassoon, are a big part of what gives this arrangement its quirky feel. The rhythmic movement and syncopation of all the background parts contribute to this playful feeling. I'll be discussing more about how the rhythmic background affects the feel of a melody in the next tutorial. But before we conclude this one, let me just point out that every musical example in this lesson contained the exact same melody, played at the exact same tempo, and with basically identical harmonies. The only major change from piece to piece was the orchestration. Become familiar with the unique sounds of all the instruments in the orchestra, and you'll be able to orchestrate for any mood you're after.